In my discussions with my humanitarian advisors, I've been assured that at this stage we can manage with the crisis as it stands, but we are anxious about what may unfold over the next week. On Taimani, we are, like yourselves, watching from Juba what is taking place, encouraging the parties to find a compromise, and in particular we understand that they are struggling to find a formula in which the Taimani Initiative and the ARCIS are associated, and we wish them every luck in doing that without wanting to back one or other side, but wanting to stress the importance of a solution that meets the needs of the people rather than the individual parties. Well, I think not only South Sudan but almost worldwide what we see is rising tensions as political competition plays out amongst contending parties immediately prior to the election. Of course, on election day itself, and then when the results are announced, disputes over the correctness of the elections. We have been insisting that properly prepared elections, which are also preceded with proper trust-building exercises, can play a significant role in taking an exercise which can be very divisive and make it a nation-building exercise so that the people come together recognizing that together they control the future of South Sudan, and they will, their fates are shared in the success of that enterprise. We're aware that we would need the collaboration of all stakeholders in this process to support a peaceful environment in which the elections can take place. And that includes, of course, not only civil society performing as a monitoring role, but it also requires faith-based leaders and other leaders, community leaders and traditional leaders to engage in the task of promoting peaceful outcomes to the elections, but also recognition that everyone must have, every South Sudanese is entitled to the same rights and expectations for a future democratic South Sudan. Well, I think there's no limit to the initiatives which can be undertaken to build trust. Primarily engagement, discussions, developing shared objectives. And I'm clearly reminded of my own country, South Africa, which was also deeply divided, how the elections were used to bring people together, not to put them against each other. And that often required all of the parties working together, maybe on the same platform, addressing communities, pointing out that they were not there simply to mobilize support for their own party, but to mobilize support for the bigger principle of building a new democratic society together. And it was at least part of the lesson that I wanted to share with you, emanating from the youth conference, where youth leaders had said, we don't want to come here to discuss elections from our different party perspectives. We want to come here to discuss it as young South Sudanese, looking for a common future together, hoping to find a way of living together and having a voice which is recognizable as that of the youth and not of a political party. I can think of lots of examples of ways in which the parties themselves can find ways of behaving, that civil society can find ways of behaving, which strengthen the notion that we're all in this boat together, that if this experiment, this exercise succeeds, all South Sudanese are beneficiaries, and the solution that we're looking for is one which recognizes that rather than rewarding only a particular section. And how can we support? Well, I think we in the UN are acutely aware that it's not our election. This is a South Sudanese election. So we're here to assist the South Sudanese. And frequently that is best accomplished by sharing with you the examples that we can bring from other countries where we've had elections. This is not the first country to have elections, it's not the first country to have its first elections. So we have to look at what we can learn from other circumstances, other situations, which can produce lessons which would be applicable here. So some of those are quite technical. How do you prepare an election budget? How do you set up and structure a voting booth? How do you manage a voting booth? How do you manage the release of information once the votes have been counted? All of those we can share with you because there's precedents and examples all over, not only the world, but all over Africa. And we are actually in the process now of sharing our experience on best practice in managing elections so that when the people hear the results, they'll say, no, all right, I accept those results. What you don't want is a badly managed election so that people say, oh no, this election was stolen, or my people were disenfranchised, or the reason the ballots didn't arrive was because my group is being denied the opportunity to participate. You want to avoid that, so you need to organize technically well-organized elections. But as I said, there's also a mental element, which is the trust building, which is to say this is not your elections, this is not my elections, it's all of our elections. And it's an exercise in which we will all benefit and in which we all stand to profit. Okay, on Wandaruba, we have had some blockages in access, but we've been able to get as close as we can to Wandaruba. The government is insisting that it has its own inquiry and that will be released in due course. We continue to push, but it's to the best of our ability to get into Wandaruba, to assure those who live there that we have an interest in finding out what's happening there. As yet, that's still an issue which is being engaged upon between our force leadership and the SSPDF leadership. I must say I was a bit skeptical about mobile courts because, you know, at the end of the day it only deals with a small number of the full number of cases of, let us say, gender-based violence or sexual violence emanating from conflict. But the truth is that it has an enormous power of showing by example what is possible. For example, Yei, where we had our first successful military courts where men in uniform were convicted for rape, never before seen here. People learned, they said, this is possible. This is the system we could have. So I'm suggesting that the example is sometimes bigger than just the number of cases involved. It sets out a pattern, a new way of doing things that shows that justice can be delayed but not denied. It encourages people. We have discovered that where these martial courts have been operating, there is a greater level of reporting of incidents to the police, so that it generally strengthens the belief in and the practice of accountability. Yes, can I just say before we let it pass that your comment that the UN supported the extension, we were deeply disappointed by the extension, but we recognised that the extension was better than rushing into elections with no preparation, because that could have been catastrophic. So since then, we've been quite frankly disappointed by the lack of progress generally by the official government bodies responsible for making critical decisions on how the elections are to be run. But we're also taking time out to recognize that there are steps being taken. And we've given you the security sector steps, the judicial reform steps, the electoral preparation steps, the establishment of the Electoral Commission, and the operation of other commissions. We've referred you to what is being done to try and open up political and civic space, and we think there is a movement now growing to open up political and civic space. 4 governors have come out in favour of it. We hope by the end of the year we'll have every governor committing to political and civic space. And we're challenging civil society and the media. What are you doing to join us in this march forward? Because it seems to us that people have got used to saying, well, government must do something. What about us? We can drive this process forward. And we want, by the beginning of the year, instead of people waiting for funding to come, for us already to be able to tick a number of important areas of progress. And today's press conference is about that. I'm sharing with you 8, 9, 10 areas where there's been significant progress. It's time now for the people to get excited about the possibility that they will eventually be afforded an opportunity to vote.